So, J. Ruud, what lovable novel are we talking about today?
Well, Stacey Margaret Jones, I'll give you a hint. A frame story set on Christmas Eve.
A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens?
Why, no. We already
That
did.
is a frame story set on Christmas Eve. Welcome to Between the Covers, the podcast in which author J. Ruud shares one book from his list, his carefully cultivated list of his 100 most lovable novels in the English language, and I, author Stacey Margaret Jones, interrogate him about his list. All right, and each time we start out, this really is authentic. I don't know the books beforehand. So we start with this quiz and he gives me hints. He writes the hints so that you can't get the answer until I can't get the answer until the third one. Okay, give me the second hint, please.
Hint number 2, Bly House.
Okay. I have read this book.
Yes.
I've read this book recently.
Yes.
Boy, you can tell. I just don't keep things in my brain. Okay, give me the third hint, and I'll hope that I do not get the trombones of despair.
Okay. Hint number 3, Miss Jessel and Peter Quint.
Turn of the Screw by Henry James.
The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. That is what it is.
I'm honestly surprised that you have Henry James on your list at all, because you are a known negger of Henry James. You do not like the Henry James. In fact, what you like most about Henry James are the insults that Theodore Roosevelt hurled at him, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, he was not he's not Roosevelt's favorite writer.
That's really interesting to me. Okay, all right. Turn of the Screw, which is it a novel? I mean, is it a novella?
It's really more of a novella, I think you'd have
All
to
right.
call it.
So Ethan Frome is eligible for inclusion on your list. Then,
I
which is
suppose.
also a novella.
I suppose.
All right. Okay. It really does surprise me that we're talking about Henry James, because
Well,
I honestly thought when we undertook this project that I would never have to talk about Henry
You
James.
never have to deal with Henry James at all. But and there's good reason, I guess, for you to feel that way.
Well, the reason is all the times you complain about Henry James. That's my reason.
When I was in graduate school, sometime back in the Jurassic period, I was assigned Henry James' novel, The Ambassadors, to read for a seminar in literary theory.
I have never read that.
And I remember, well, you count yourself lucky. I remember trying to work my way through that novel, and I was exhausted by the end of a day of reading where I had possibly got 30 pages read. I remember taking like 30 minutes to read a single page.
Yep,
and
that
often it because I had fallen asleep twice before I got to the end of the page. And I remember the extreme irony that I felt when I reached the point in the novel when the protagonist, Struther, advises a young man, live all you can. It's a mistake not to. And thinking to myself, this reading experience is the opposite of living all I can.
Why am I reading this when I should be living all I can?
I should be living all I can. I should be sitting in my office, falling asleep 3 times during an hour of reading this novel.
The struggle of the English major and the English graduate student is real, because I remember as an English major one semester, for one calendar year, I took 15 to 18 credits of English per semester, right? Every class of mine was an English class. And I remember I was babysitting somewhere and the kid was asleep and I was walking around reading. It was Louise Erdrich, actually. so that I wouldn't fall asleep. And it wasn't because Erdrich is boring. It was because I was so tired and reading. I was so done reading for the day, and yet I still had to read like 100 more pages. So I was walking around the house, babysitting, listening for the kid, reading the book so I wouldn't fall asleep. So I understand that, and I understand what James does to you. I've read Portrait of a Lady, and then I read Wings of the Dove. And when I read Wings of the Dove, I said, and I'm out. I really like Portrait of a Lady.
Yeah, well, that is probably his most readable novel.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
You know, I read The Ambassadors, did not really want to read any more of Henry James. I did actually, for purposes of making my list, I read The Golden Bowl and Wings of a Dove and Portrait of a Lady. And Golden Bowl and Wings of a Dove were more readable than The Ambassadors, but they were not a joy to read. No. Portrait of a Lady is the closest James ever gets in a full-length novel to being readable. And so I never thought I would put him on this list.
Readable,
either.
but not lovable.
Yeah. Some people may love it, and they might have reason to. It really is the book of James's that most often gets mentioned on these kinds of great book lists.
It's accessible.
Yeah, but I never thought that I would be putting a Henry James book on this list. But then I realized, kind of in the back of my head, that his short novels, his novellas, are actually much more accessible and much more readable than his long novels.
Well,
Washington Square.
Yes, also good.
Beast in the Jungle, The Aspen Papers are all pretty readable.
All right.
And then I thought, Turn of the Screw is actually a pretty good, scary story.
Well, we're getting into the lovable part, so let's back up a little bit and do some of our housekeeping, so to speak.
All right.
So who else likes The Turn of the Screw? Highlights. You're exhausted.
Well, I'll tell you one kind of authority on scary novels, a fellow by the name of Stephen King.
Oh, that guy.
In a 1983 survey of the genre of horror stories, he said that the only two great supernatural horror stories of the past century, which at the time he wrote that would be from 1883 to 1983,
right,
had been Shirley Jackson's novel The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
And Turn of the Screw.
Interesting.
So, I mean, that's a pretty high ranking from somebody who probably knows what he's talking about when it comes to
the genre.
Gothic horror stories.
And to writing, obviously.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I feel, this is my hot take, don't at me. Well, you can at me. I think Stephen King's imagination exceeds his writing ability. I think his novels are very imaginative, and he does the hard work of seeing through that imaginative vision. I think they could be better written, like on a sentence basis. That's my hot take, and honestly, I have a ton of respect for Stephen King because he writes more every day than I do in a year. So I just he does what you have to do if you're going to be a writer, which is right.
Yeah.
So I get that, but I'm just sharing that.
Well,
I have my moment.
I don't have any of his books on my list.
Yeah, there you go. I think that.
But I agree that he has a great imagination, and a lot of his books make really good movies.
Yes, also that's true.
But other people who have loved this book, I guess you could say, it's on the New York Public Library's Books of the Century list. It's on the Daily Mail's 100 Novels to Change Your Life list.
Is it 20th century? When was it published?
It was published actually in 1898, so I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they meant the 20th century. And it was close enough to the 20th century.
Snuck in. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
There was an edition in 10 years later that James wrote a forward to, and maybe they were sort of counting that in.
Okay.
But
they got it in.
It's on the College Board's list of the 101 great books recommended for college-bound readers.
Yeah.
It's on the Sunday Times list of 100 books to love, and in its specific genre, NPR rated it number 87 on its list of 100 favorite horror stories. The critical work, Fantasy and Horror, a critical and historical guide, puts it at number 13.
Okay.
And Paste Magazine's list of the 50 best horror novels of all time ranked it as number 10.
All right.
So it's bona fide.
It's bona fide. All right. Well, why don't you give us the down and dirty summary, and we'll go from there. So we'll see if you get the Harps of Glory like I did.
Well, all right. This is a novel about a young governess who goes to take two children in her charge at a kind of old house out in the country.
Bly House?
Yes, Bly House. That was number 2. And it's a boy who's 10 and a girl who's 8. And she begins to suspect that the previous governess and a male employee of the house who worked on the yard and stuff, who were kind of the children's mentors, but had both died. She believes that they are haunting the children in the manor.
Okay, that's all right. You were kind of going afield there. I thought, well, I'm going to settle in. But Harps of Glory, you wrapped it up. You brought it back. You closed the circle.
I did.
Okay. Well, why do you love this book?
I don't necessarily love horror stories by themselves.
Yeah, I'm not.
Straightforward ones. But this is one that it's especially scary because virtually everything is left to your imagination.
Right.
The governess never really verbalizes what it is she thinks is happening.
Right.
She just knows that these two...
Well, she writes about having seen things.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. But she doesn't ever say what she thinks they want to do to the children.
Right. It's just a menacing presence.
Yeah.
That is scary.
And she feels like they have to be there for some terrible purpose.
Right.
And she has to somehow protect the children. And as things go on, she begins to think it's not that she has to protect them from them. They're already kind of in their clutches, and then she feels like she has to free them from the clutches of these ghosts.
Lingering spirits. So you said it was a frame story. Let's back up a little bit and talk about just a little bit of how James delivers the story.
Yeah.
So he has people. You said it's a frame story on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And people are telling stories to each other.
Yeah,
and then
they're sort of telling ghost stories.
One person is like, hold my beer. Like, I got the worst story of all, and it's true.
Yeah.
And it's from, was it a diary? Or letters? Because it was written, right?
Yeah. It's kind of, it's not exactly letters.
Okay.
But it is the governess's own record of what happened, what she felt happened.
She has written it down. So,
yeah.
So he is telling it from something he read.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
The actual narrator is somebody who is never named.
Right.
He's just a person who's part of this group. He does talk about this other guy whose name is Douglas, who says that he has a document that was written by his sister's late governess, in which she sort of confesses, I guess, how in a previous job she was hired to take care of these kids.
Oh, okay.
So it's an unnamed narrator listening to some other guy named Douglas who's telling a story about that he seems to have gotten from his sister, who got it from her former governess. And so there's all these layers of...
it reminds me of Isaac Denison's Gothic tales, because they're usually layered in that way as well. Yeah. Like, by the time you get into the plot of the story, you kind of have... you've kind of lost track of the labyrinth of how you got there, which is
Yeah.
part of also what makes it kind of misty and
Yeah.
like urban legend. Like this
Yeah.
happened to my dentist sister. It's
Yeah.
really true.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and that it has that feeling on the page. Like, is it really true? Like, how, okay,
Yeah, how-
who is this again?
And how can we be sure this is true just
Yeah.
because somebody told us that somebody else told them that
But-
they heard this?
But the stories have that kind of delicious, like, I want to know what happens. You know, I want to believe it's true because
Yeah.
it's just so compelling and interesting. So it reminds me of that. It also reminds me a little bit of Frankenstein because that is also a
Yeah.
frame story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this came out before Denison wrote, but it came out after Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
so it's in that genre. I
yeah. Which goes back to Chaucer, of course.
guess. Sure. Of course, because of the Canterbury Tales is a frame story.
It's a frame story.
Right. I gotta say, I was really looking forward to reading. We read this aloud recently, and I kind of checked out, which is hard to do when you're reading something aloud to somebody else. But I just, at first when we were reading it, I was looking up like online summaries and stuff because I was like, okay, what's happening? And then after a while, I was like, I'm just going to let it wash over me. I knew who the ghosts were, kind of. I wasn't feeling the menace. Maybe I would have been more into it if I just read it to myself and read it kind of quickly through to myself, and I would have stayed in the story. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I would not be putting this on my list.
Yeah. Well, that's probably true. That it would have stuck with you better if you'd read it by yourself instead of
Or
out
if we'd been on a
loud.
long car trip and we'd read it kind of straight through.
Yeah,
I think that might have been
that probably
more.
would have been better. But I think reading to yourself, it's hard to read James out
Yeah.
loud and follow every sentence because he's one of the great stylists in English, but the style is not
Just
all
because
that
you can doesn't mean you
readable.
should.
It's very dense,
I
even
just found
in
it-
something that's not as dense like this.
So I have to ask you, Ruud, do you feel compelled to put James on the list because of the canon or something? I'm just really surprised to find you putting a James book on the list.
There is something to that. I mean,
I just feel like there are books you have read that you loved more than this book that probably aren't
well,
on the
probably,
list.
but I mean, I did say when we started that I wanted to include as many different authors as possible. I only got 2 that I used more than one book from, Jane Austen and Dickens, and I could have put 4 or 5 Austen novels on this list that I liked better than James, or 4 or 5 Dickens novels that I liked
Or
better than
I'm
James,
thinking
or more.
books you've read in the 21st century that you would have loved more that probably aren't on the list, that you probably are like, this is an amazing and great book. Like, I loved reading this book. I enjoyed this book.
There are some, but there are some 21st century books on this list, and
Yeah,
there
that's
will
true.
be
Okay.
more. So,
Okay.
so those are going to be there. But you're right. There are a lot of books that I love more than this one, but they're by authors that I already have on the list as well.
Have
and-
you read The Bell Jar?
Yes,
And it's not on the list.
it's not on my list.
Oh, my
I'm
God.
sure it would be on your list. But we're not talking about Sylvia Plath today. we're talking about Henry James.
I know, I just don't want to talk about it because I just didn't. I'm sorry. I do want to talk about it. Just when you said what the book was, I was like, I knew that's why we were reading it aloud, because I knew you were reading it to see if it would be on your list. And I was just sure when we finished it that it was not going to make it. But that would be my list, not your list. So why do you love it then?
It's scary. It's scary, and it's scary partly because it's all in your head. That there's nothing really there.
Yeah.
That will make you afraid. And also, when this was first published, people took it just as straight narrative that okay, this stuff that the governess is talking about is actually there. It's actually happening.
Well, that was during the spiritualism.
Well, it was
It was late. It
Yeah.
was late in the spiritualism era.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that was late 19th
So
century.
that may have
It was
been
probably
what.
very appealing.
Yeah, that may have been
aspect
what
of it.
moved
Sure.
James to write this. Also, what moved him to write it was he had a contract to write a Gothic story to be serialized in this magazine.
That's why it reminds me of Gothic writing, because it is one.
It is one
It
of
is a
those.
Gothic story.
Yeah. But the thing I like the most about this
Okay, I'd like to hear.
is that, and Virginia Woolf actually was the first person to point this out.
Oh, about this novel?
Yeah,
Okay.
in
Novella.
1919, I think.
Okay.
She said that the 1918, Virginia Woolf wrote that Jessel and Quint, the two ghosts, had neither the substance nor independent existence of ghosts, but represented the young governess's own developing realization of the very real presence of evil in the world. So the suggestion is that it's really all in the governess's head. She's coming to recognize the existence of evil in the world, and sort of personifies it with these two dead former employees
That are coming for the children.
Yeah.
The innocent children.
The innocent children. Partly, you need to remember her background. She's the daughter of a country parson who's been sort of sheltered her whole life.
And raised with probably an idea of good and evil.
Yeah. And so she's hired by this guy who has a niece and nephew on his estate, but he likes to spend his time in London. He's rich, and he hires her, and she's attracted to him. She's never, been out in the world and probably never
Right.
had a boyfriend before.
Yeah,
So
she likes him.
Yeah, she likes him. But the one thing that he tells her is, don't ever bother me. Like, don't ever write to me to ask me anything about these kids.
Your job is to solve the problems, not to bring them to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've given him the house. You take care of
I'm
them.
paying
I
for
don't
you.
want.
Just take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when she starts having these suspicions, she can't go to him and say, I'm worried about this or that.
Right.
So she goes to the maid,
Right.
Mrs. Gross,
Mrs. Gross.
who's the person that she bounces things off of.
Right.
Mrs. Gross never sees the ghosts.
But she's not dismissive.
No. She thinks, okay, maybe you've seen these things.
Yeah,
and
she
they're appearing
believes
to
it's
you.
possible.
It could be possible.
These things could be happening.
She does have an unrealistic view of the children. She says they're little angels, and that's what she believes. So I guess she influences the governess in the way she thinks of the children. As time goes on, though, and the governess becomes more and more kind of obsessed with this, Mrs. Gross seems to back away and is like,
maybe not.
do you think we should do this?
Yeah.
So that's that leads you to suspect that there's something not completely right there.
One of the things I thought about it was that James's style gets in the way of the horror of it. Like, I kept waiting for kind of these big, scary moments. Not like, I don't like to read horror either. Or watch it. I don't watch horror movies. I don't read that scary stuff, whatever. But I was happy to read this because I knew it was kind of meaningful, right? But when the scary thing would happen, it just felt like his style of writing mitigated it. And I guess part of that is a decision, like you say, where it's all in your own mind.
Yeah.
And that also is an interesting choice because it's also in the governess's mind.
Yeah.
So it has that kind of, like, the way he writes it, you have to imagine it a lot, and because she is maybe imagining it, right?
Yeah.
But I still just found it, I wasn't compelled by, I like a ghost story. We disagree because I do believe in ghosties to some degree. And you're like, no, there aren't any. So I was really interested in it, but I just found those moments be less compelling than I thought they would be.
Yeah. Well, I think his style is maybe deliberately obscuring
Because
the facts.
Because the facts are that they aren't there.
Yeah,
right.
or that she's just thinking they're there, or that you're... Actually, what he wrote in his preface to the 1908 edition of the text was that he wanted the reader to think the evil, make him think it for himself.
Right.
Just as the governess thinks it for herself.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like he wants you to do this.
Yeah. I get what he was trying to do.
Man, tough crowd.
Well, I told you this anecdote. We've talked about this on here before, because Edith Wharton was a very good friend of Henry James, and he kind of mentored her. And he gave her some writing of his and story or something, and I can't remember if it was this or something else. And she responded by saying, "This is very deft, and I like the style so much, and I just really wondered why you have such a distance between the narrator and the action or something, the narrator and the narrator's thought, something like that." And he responded kind of coldly, "I didn't know I had done that." So I was thinking about that when we were reading this story,
Yeah.
because I was like, this might be what she was talking about.
Maybe.
Anyway, sorry. Okay.
Well, building on Virginia Woolf's
Yes.
comments,
Sorry.
in the 1930s, there was a scholar by the name of Edmund Wilson. People started to believe that the ghosts were hallucinations.
Right.
He said that they were hallucinations in the mind of the governess. And
Wilson said this.
yeah.
Yes.
And the sheltered and repressed daughter of a country parson was having these visions of this notoriously erotic couple, because Miss Jessel and Peter Quint had been sexually active, and they were the gossip of the town and stuff, and people thought their deaths were, a punishment or something.
Yeah.
But she was like obsessed with sex,
Right.
because she had been so repressed.
And she likes her boss,
Yeah.
who says, "Don't talk to me."
Yeah. So they're kind of the outgrowth of her own sexual repression.
Yeah.
It's very Freudian. And a lot of feminist scholars have since then have shot that opinion down. But you don't have to read it as sexual repression. But I think if you read what she says herself,
The governess.
there are definite hints that James has put in that are intended to make us wonder about the governess's sanity.
Right. Well, and if you have the textual hints, whether, James, how feminist was James, right? So it might be that you can build a textual case for the Wilson reading.
Yeah, you
because
probably
James
can.
put it in because maybe he thought this.
Well,
anyway, go on with
but
what you're saying.
this would have been prior to the influence of Freud, I think.
Oh, okay.
So he may not have consciously done that.
Right.
But here's a passage that comes from the governess's comments.
Okay.
"I began to watch them," the children, "in a stifled suspense, a disguised excitement that might well, had it continued too long, have turned into something like madness. What saved me, as I now see, was that it turned to something else altogether. It didn't last as suspense. It was superseded by horrible proofs."
Oh, okay.
Of course, you never see any horrible proofs. They're proofs in her mind.
She's proving her own argument.
Yeah.
She's manufacturing. At some level, she's manufacturing proof for her own hypothesis.
Yeah.
I will say that even in my somewhat checked out state of reading this, I kept feeling like I knew that I was kind of having this anachronistic reading to it, because I guess I was a passive reader. I was believing the governess too much, because I kept thinking it's like Peter Quint was grooming the child, the boy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's anachronism. They don't talk about grooming it in that way, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely comes through to a 21st century reader.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's an idea that, you don't want to be too active of a reader because then you're trying to move like they should be doing this and they should be doing this, right? And you don't want to be too passive because then you accept too much what's on the page.
Yeah.
So you want to be in that kind of middle lane where you're processing and assessing what you're reading with your own mind, right? Your own interpretation.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I admit I wasn't doing that.
Well,
But I will say that the idea, this kind of menacing sexuality does
Yeah.
come through, even if
Yeah.
you're not like super engaged. Because I was like, this is not a correct reading of this because this is anachronistic.
well, maybe. I mean, I don't know that it's anachronism, just
Okay.
because people didn't call it that.
Right.
And we don't know what she thinks
Right.
they're doing to the kids.
Right.
It's possible, at least in her mind, or maybe maybe it is real after all, but
Yeah.
it's possible that Quint is kind of grooming him.
And lascivious in some way. And
Yeah, and that Flora, the sister, is being groomed by Miss Jessel. They can't have sex anymore themselves. Maybe they can kind of possess the children.
and they're caught by
And-
the thing that they desired in life. So
Yeah.
they're still caught here trying to realize that desire.
Yeah,
Like,
which
which they can't. Right?
unless they somehow take possession of the two children and have them do these things.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's implied,
Interesting.
at least, I mean, since we don't know what the governess thinks they're going to do,
Right.
it's certainly possible. And this is what exactly what James wanted you to do, is come up with these,
Ponder.
and come up with these possible
Well,
plots yourself.
he did that too. Pretty effectively because, like I said, I wasn't like doing a close reading of it, even though I was reading it aloud. I just was like, the sexual menace to the children is apparent.
Yeah. At least in the governess's mind.
Well, in the pages.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That there exists. She's telling the story.
Yeah.
The menace, like his writing, his craft creates that menace, I think, for me as a reader.
Yeah. There's another place where, actually, there are a lot of other places where the governess's sense impressions are called into question, even by herself. At one point, she comes across Miles. Miles is the 10-year-old
Yeah.
nephew, and Flora is the 8-year-old niece. They look like they're reading a book. It looks like Miles is reading aloud to Flora.
Mm-hmm.
But the governess insists, talking to Mrs. Gross, the housekeeper, he's not reading to her, I declared. They're talking of them. They're talking horrors.
Oh.
I go on, I know, as if I were crazy. And it's a wonder I'm not. What I've seen would have made you so, but it has only made me more lucid, made me get hold of still other things.
It's like when people who are, think everything is about them and they go in and hear somebody talking in a foreign language and they think they're talking about them, right? Like they don't care about you, and right in front of her they can be doing something else, but because she's so fixated on this manufactured
Yeah,
menace
yeah.
that she thinks everything is about it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Finally, she confronts Flora so vigorously, I guess you could say, that Flora refuses to have anything more to do with her. Doesn't want to see her ever again. And
I don't remember this.
she decides to send Flora away with Mrs. Gross.
Mm-hmm.
And tells Mrs. Gross to go with her to the uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And leave her alone with Miles. So she sets up what is this kind of, what she at least sees as a kind of cosmic battle between her and Quint for
Right.
the soul
Of Miles.
Of Miles.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is the climax of the story. I'm not going to tell you
Please don't.
the outcome because that's a spoiler that you don't want anybody to know. But she actually second guesses herself before the actual confrontation. She says, I seemed to float not into clearness, but into a darker obscure. And within a minute there had come to me out of my very pity the appalling alarm of his perhaps being innocent. It occurs to her, maybe I've been wrong.
She just has these little niggling voices all along that are like, maybe this isn't happening, or maybe you're misinterpreting this, or
Yeah.
and she just keeps
She keeps going.
trying to ignore them.
Maybe he's innocent, but then she says, it was for the instant confounding and bottomless. For if he were innocent, what then on earth was I? That's the question. What if he's innocent and I'm, grilling him like this and trying to get at something that maybe isn't even there? What does that say about me?
And she doesn't want to know, so she
No.
keeps persisting.
Yeah.
Well, isn't there something in the beginning? Because I remember this when I was more trying to engage. Isn't Miles kicked out of school or something, and we don't know why?
Yeah.
So there's this idea that he did something,
Yeah.
or something happened, and
Yeah.
it's a big secret.
Yeah.
What do we? You don't have to tell us what it is, spoiler. But do we find out what that is?
No, we never know.
Okay,
and
so
that's
that wasn't
really,
just me being checked out. It does not come. Okay.
That's kind of the first, the initiating incident that sets her mind going, because they get this letter that he's been kicked out of school for some kind of action, but
Right.
but it never specifies, and she tries to get him to tell her
Right.
what he did, and he's pretty secretive about it. So she never knows what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it had something to do with Quint and what he was doing to the boy.
She's ruminating on this thing, and then she answers. She starts to kind of manufacture an answer to her own
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
instead of just being like, nobody will tell her, right?
No.
Does Mrs. Gross know?
No. Nobody
Secrets,
knows.
friends.
Nobody
don't
knows.
have secrets. They are bad. They will drive your governess crazy.
And she will try conversions therapy.
She will
on
do
you.
a lot of things
Yeah.
that she should not be doing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, now I feel like I should read it again more closely.
Well, good.
But I think I'm an English major and a writer. I think my take is valid. James requires effort.
He does.
So while I did love Portrait of a Lady, I did love that novel. I did not love this.
Well,
But
maybe I
it's not
should have
my
picked
list.
Portrait of the Lady.
Well, lobbying commenced.
Well, put Portrait of the Lady on your list. When we're done with my 100, maybe we'll do your
I think we
your
should.
alternative
After this, I
100.
think we should do a list of 100 novels that aren't on my list and why. I've been thinking about it.
No, I was thinking that you should come up with a list of 100 novels that aren't on my list, and
Start with the bell jar.
here's why they should be.
The bell jar. That's the top. All right. Well, anything else that's lovable you want to hit before we move on? Or any other points you want to make about this lovable novel?
Well, one of the reasons that I picked this novel was because I remember when I was probably about 12 years old, I saw the movie called The Innocents, which was based on Turn of the Screw. Actually, it was based on a play called The Innocents that was...
It was a copy of a copy. Is what you're saying.
yeah, kind of. Because there was a stage play written by William Archibald in 1950 called The Innocents, where he adapted the story for the stage. And it was directed by Harold Pinter,
Oh,
interestingly.
I'm a fan.
Yeah. And then the script of the play was adapted for the screen in 1961.
Okay.
But the director, Jack Clayton, thought that Archibald's script made the ghosts too clearly real.
Right,
and
because it's too ambiguous. It's more ambiguous.
Yeah, and he hired Truman Capote to rewrite the script.
I'm little, but I'm old.
Yeah. And make it more psychologically complex. And Deborah Carr played the governess. And,
interesting.
And I saw that movie when I was like 12 years old, and it really stuck with me.
Okay. So that might be partly why you love
That's
it.
a good reason
Sure.
why I picked Turn of the Screw, I think.
That's
it's actually been adapted a lot.
it seems like it is good material for that.
Yeah, Joyce Carol Oates wrote a short story that was called The Accursed Inhabitants of House Bly, published in 1994, in which she tells the story from the point of view of the two ghosts.
I was hoping that's what you were going to say because, boy, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so if you're interested in reading,
It's a short story.
it's a short story,
Oh, okay.
so it might
have to look
be
that up.
worth reading. It was adapted as an opera in 1954 by Benjamin Britten.
Oh, not the Carol Oates, Joyce Carol Oates.
No,
we're going backward.
We're
okay.
we're
to the
talking
Innocents.
about Turn of the Screw.
Yeah.
It was adapted in 1954 as an opera. It was adapted by Will Tucker as a ballet for the British Royal Ballet in 1999.
I like a ballet.
And you can probably imagine how interesting that would be.
Oh, I mean, we saw Onegin and they have all those mirror scenes, right?
Yeah.
And that
You-
you could do such interesting things with this with the
Yeah.
ballet. Oh my goodness.
And one other really interesting adaptation. In 1959, there was a television production of Turn of the Screw that was directed by John Frankenheimer. And it starred Ingrid Bergman.
Oh.
It was her first TV appearance.
Love her.
And she won an Emmy
Yeah.
playing the governess.
Awesome.
You can still find that online if you look,
Okay.
like on
Okay.
YouTube or something.
Okay.
Why-
Well, that's very interesting that this this novella has launched this many things in, I always say that are in conversation with it because
Yeah.
it means people are working things out,
Yeah.
right? I have something I want to work out with this. I'm going to write my own thing and bring out this or like the director was like, oh, those people were too real. We gotta, because they saw the ambiguity
Yeah.
as key to the experience of the story.
Yeah.
Why is it called The Turn of the Screw? I was not prepared to answer that essay question in my Henry James class.
That phrase appears, I think, 2 or 3 times.
I remember reading it, but I remember I didn't understand
and
why it
it's
was
just
called
like-
that.
Turning the screw is making it more intense.
Right, okay.
I think that's
What
the
I thought,
point.
but I thought maybe I was missing some. See, I guess I understood more than I thought. I thought I didn't understand it, but I guess I was getting it.
There you go.
All right. Well, I'm glad we talked. Now I feel better about my reading comprehension skills. All right. Well, why might people not like this?
You've already, I think, answered that question yourself.
I'm ready for that essay question on the Henry James seminar final.
Yeah, so I don't think there's
You're not
anything I
gonna
can
add
add.
There's just there's a distance sometimes in his writing, and you have to be a more active reader, I think.
Yeah,
You're not passive readers need not apply, right?
that's true.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really curious about where this is going to be ranked.
Well, I am putting this at number 58.
Okay. Is that the last?
That is the last
Okay,
on the list.
that's fair. That's fair. He squeaked onto the list of the 20th century books, and he's squeaking onto your lovable list so far.
There you go.
All right.
So after The Big Sleep, which had been
Boy.
the final novel.
Now for something completely different.
Yeah,
After the big sleep.
yeah. But they're both kind of
both
they're both
suspenseful.
kind of suspenseful and scary.
They could be.
All right. Well,
All right. Sorry, Mr. James.
man.
You did you.
So is it time for Chaos Reader?
Indude. Also, I guess I should explain indude. Since we have said indude to each other for a very long time because we were saying indeed dude a lot, and we decided to just say indude.
It's
That's a way
takes
to
less effort.
Shorten it up. So indude, it is time for Chaos Reader. And Chaos Reader this week is, I'm checking in on a book. I think I've talked about it before, but I hadn't started it yet. And this is Marie Howe's New and Selected Poems. So it's a longer poetry collection, because a lot of times I'll read just a current collection, and those will be, 60 to 100 pages maybe. But this is 170 some pages, because it includes new and selected poems from her previous collection. So if you've read anything of Marie Howe and you liked it, this would be a good kind of way to experience some of her current contemporary poems, and then things that she has selected from her past collections. And honestly, I'm really enjoying it. I will just read the comment or the blurb from the New York Times, because they say it as well as I could possibly. Howe specializes in vibrant, bracing, haunting work that stops you in your tracks. And I will say that is, I love it when you read a poem and you get to the end and you're like, oh.
Smacked upside the head.
Yeah, just like the insight it delivers into your brain is so meaningful that you just pause in the reading. And so I've been reading, 2 or 3 poems a day while I read the Irish novel about the people leaving the famine. And because I don't find it helpful to read a poetry book just on its own straight through. I'm too structured to just pick up a poetry book and leaf through and read a poem. I want to read every poem in the book. And I also think that the order that the poet put them in is important. So I want to read them in order, because poets take a lot of time and consideration when they put their poems in a collection in terms of what comes first and second, etc. So I want to experience it in that way. But to read a poetry book straight through like that is, to me, like a too rich meal. Because if you're getting those feelings, that kind of like, oh, you're not open to it in a lot of poems because you just had it, right? Like you have to be hungry for it in a way. So I like to kind of space out reading a collection. But I highly recommend these, because I think they're very accessible. I think a lot of times people are like, I want to like poetry, but these are contemporary. The language is not overwrought. It's not super erudite, or however her craft is sophisticated enough to deliver that punch to, I think, any reader. So I highly recommend Marie Howe, New and Selected Poems. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think the dogs gave it to me for Mother's Day.
And this was the last year's Pulitzer Prize winning poetry book.
Okay. That makes sense, because that's a lot of times, as I mentioned last time, if I'm looking for a book to read, I'll go to the Pulitzer Prize books and pick the poets and the novels and biographies. Not the drama. Not a big drama reader.
Nope.
All right. Well, we would like to thank our listeners and our viewers on all our platforms. We really do appreciate all those views that we see. It means a lot to us. And, of course, our producing sensei, who taught us how to make our own podcast. It took him a long time to get us here. And he also does the art.
We're still learning.
We're still learning. He does the art for all of our YouTube videos, the cover art for those. So we appreciate all his volunteer time, Jerry Bruno, and our listeners all over the world. So thank you for that. And we will see you next time. Between
the covers.